House committee schedules hearing with FDA to talk hemp. And sorry that my story just dropped here, so I got to pull it back up. Sorry, guys. That's a little technical difficulty. We're back. All right. So, talking about hemp again, and today, again, marijuana moment from Kyle Yeager. House committee schedules hearing with FDA head to talk hemp regulations and other issues next week. A congressional committee has announced that it is calling in the head of the Food and Drug Administration to testify on hemp regulatory issues as a way to hold him accountable amid ongoing industry concerns. The House Oversight and Accountability Committee, chaired by Rep. James Comer, who's a Republican from Kentucky, scheduled a hearing with the FDA Commissioner Robert Califf on April 11th. Members of the panel will weigh in on a going investigation into FDA's response to several issues, including hemp regulation, it said in a notice on Thursday. The Oversight Committee has highlighted several crises occurring on the FDA's watch, which have negatively impacted the lives and health of American people and families, Commerce said in the notice. We will hold the commissioner accountable for what the FDA is doing to address ongoing crises, how they are conducting inspections to prevent nationwide crisis in the future, and how they intend to ensure the FDA is the first and foremost protecting American consumers. Other issues set to be discussed include drug shortages, tobacco regulation, food safety, and infant formula. Interesting. This comes nearly a year after a House subcommittee held a first-of-its-kind hearing where members examined the impacts of FDA inaction on developing regulations to allow for the sale of hemp-derived CBD as food items or dietary supplements. Comer, the full committee chairman, has sharply criticized FDA after the agency announced in January that it would not be developing CBD regulations because it said there's not an available pathway to create such rules and it would require congressional action. Last year, the congressman said that his panel would be launching an investigation into the matter, and he requested FDA turn over documents related to its decision not to regulate the cannabinoid. Even before the agency made that decision, the congressman expressed his intent to address the lack of rules. In January, meanwhile, a coalition of hemp industry organizers called on the House Energy and Commerce Committee to hold a hearing addressing the ongoing lack of FDA regulations for products made with constituents of the crop, such as CBD. The hemp industry took a major plunge in 2022, according to a report from the U.S. Department of Agriculture that was released last April. And stakeholders say the FDA's refusal to issue the regulations for CBD products is largely to blame. Bipartisan congressional lawmakers refiled a separate pair of bills last March that are also meant to provide a pathway for the regulation of hemp derivatives like CBD as dietary supplements and food and beverage additives. The House Energy and House Energy and Commerce and Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions HELP is the acronym there, committee responded to the FDA's inaction last summer by putting out a request for information from experts on the best path forward for regulating hemp, with hundreds of respondents sharing their perspective and recommendations. After the FDA announced it wouldn't be taking steps to create hemp and CBD regulations, Senator Ron Wyden, Rand Paul, and Jeff Merkley, along with Rep. Earl Bloomhauer, filed legislation last July that would remove regulatory barriers that FDA claims prevents it from allowing the hemp marketing. Meanwhile, the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture has separately called on Congress to increase the THC limit for legal hemp as one of their 2024 priorities. So it goes on a little bit more, just kind of restates the 0.3% THC limit for hemp and the current regulations. But basically, the story is letting us know that they're going to have these conversations. And what do we think about that, fellow correspondents? What do we think do we think they're going to achieve anything? Are things going to change? And should, as you know, this relates to Mark's story. And also, I think we had another story about, I don't know.
I'll tell you what, at least.
What do we think?
I'll tell you what, at least. I have a feeling. We found exactly what all these little hemp producers are so nervous about from Mark's story, from Dr. Mark's story. That's what we found is like, oh yeah, it's getting closer to the time when they're going to start working and redrafting the farm bill, and they're not going to be able to do a lot of the things and selling the things in the way that they've been doing it, and they're all starting to panic and like, oh my God, our world is caving in. Here we go. That's what's happening.
Right, but the Farm Bill does not address what happens to that hemp plant after it's harvested. Right, that was my
But
key point.
the new one might. That's my point. Is I feel like the government has seen the error in the ways in how the Farm Bill rolled out, and so I believe in, from everything that I see and talk to and whatnot, that this new Farm Bill is going to be far more restrictive than how the Farm Bill is in present form.
I think there's an easier way to address this, Elise, rather than putting it through committees in Congress and legislation. This can be done by executive order. This can be done by the Secretary of Health and Human Services writing a letter making an exception for CBD from the FD&C Act, and that letter is all that's required to turn on the CBD market. Mm-hmm. That's how they can do this. They can do this by making an exception. And again, I think there's plenty of scientific data to back that, and that sending it back through the FDA and back through Congress, that's a gauntlet that just goes nowhere.
Where's the political?
It really does. They've had years to figure this out, and they haven't. So here's one document signed by one human being that can basically end this whole fucking thing.
Dr. Mark, where's the political capital going to come from to get that done?
Yeah, well, I don't have the answer to that question.
All right, okay, exactly, because it's not coming from anywhere. Because it's not that's not even the reality. That Joe Biden's not going to do it.
Well, it's
now,
not Joe Biden.
It's
not Joe Biden. It's the Secretary of Health and Human Services, right? It's basically one person in the.
So it's
Biden
the director of that department that would write that.
Or whatever administration. It's just one person that can turn on the CBD industry by making an exception to the FD&C Act. And there's precedent for that, unlike what you're saying, which is you want the USDA's regulatory authority to expand beyond harvest. They don't do that. That's not.
I'm just saying that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen.
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's the wild, wild west right now. I mean, you can go to any grocery store and buy a CBD gummy or CBD in a drink or
Delta
food, right?
8, HHC, THCO, all these things.
And people are mad about that.
Yep.
And then other people are thrilled
Parents
about
are pissed.
that.
Protect the children. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
don't you think if they have access to good cannabis and good cannabis products, that market will go away?
Guess what? Even in the best markets, people don't have the access that they should have because they're all protectionist design market spaces with either local control or limited licensure in certain states, and so you're not going to have that ever.
Yeah, you will, because you got the internet, man.
When we have direct to consumer, that's that at that point, yes, you're correct with that. But in the current framework as it is in every single state, no, not a chance.
But do you guys remember go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we got these two octogenarians that nobody likes that are running for president, and
there's only one
that nobody likes that are running for president. I'm saying, like, if America wants another old white guy in charge of everything, actually have one that's all for the people. Let's bring Bernie back. Come on, let's bring Bernie back.
I will say this, and then I'll roll into our last story. Is that the best chance to keep the farm bill the same is probably to get Trump in there, because after all, he's the one that passed it, and so he would want to keep it the same if anybody did, more than anybody else.